Hey there, folks. Are you passionate about democracy and concerned about the rise of authoritarianism? I'm Joanne, Kevin's wife, and I've seen him give everything to this work. That's why Coffee with Democrats matters, lifting up stories, building connections, and keeping democracy strong. So tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. for 30 minutes of conversation with elected officials, candidates, and Democratic influencers, only on Coffee with Democrats. So join me in welcoming the Executive Director and host of Coffee with Democrats, my husband, Kevin Dawson.
All right, welcome to Coffee with Democrats tonight. We got a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Mary Boren, Senator Mary Boren. Senator Boren, thank you for coming on Coffee with Democrats. This was kind of an unusual circumstance for us. John Waldron was supposed to be with us tonight. We had advertised for him to be able to do that. But then, unfortunately, due to circumstances, he had to resign and step down from the Oklahoma Democratic Party state chair. And I wanted to give him some space in order to heal before we try to do another segment with him. But he will be invited back on. There's no malice, no hard feelings. I appreciate everything that he's done. And I appreciate that he's being honest with himself and the rest of us that, you know, he needs to take a step back away from it for a little while.
Yeah. So
thank you for being on Coffee with Democrats.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's always a pleasure. And you're such a good sport about this too. And I think the world of you.
Well,
I wish you were my senator.
Well, I kind of feel like I am. So
I can always call upon you for help.
yeah,
So
well, good.
that's very good. Well, let's talk about a couple of things. We've got 3 topics to talk about. You've been on the news lately a little bit, but you've been hitting the Facebook and they've been reporting on some of the news media about the University of Oklahoma issue going on with one of the students that turned in somebody for a bad grade. I won't get on all the details just for their privacy, but I just thought, you know, there's a real issue there. And I know that from my time going to the University of Oklahoma, it's a real issue about integrity, making sure you do what the assignment says and then follow through with that. And you get a grade appropriately. I never had a problem when I got a bad grade. So what are your thoughts about this? And can you go ahead and report about what the AAUP is reporting as well?
Well, thank you for having me here,
Yeah.
Kevin. I really admire the work that you're doing to try to keep Democrats informed about what's going on. So, yeah, recently, a graduate student assistant was put on administrative leave because of a grade assigned to a student. The student didn't like the result of the appeals process and went and escalated it with a political backlash.
Right.
And so now everybody in Oklahoma and the rest of the world is looking at the assignment, looking at the rubric, and learning how academic integrity is protected in systems and even through advocacy.
Right.
So, you know, to me, the issue is what is an academic standard, why we have academic standards, and even how people of faith can keep their faith,
right,
and also perform under those academic standards. Unfortunately, it looks like this young student didn't want to perform under the academic standards and only wanted to express her religious opinions, which you have every right to do.
right.
But you don't, if you're going to do that in an academic setting, you also have to meet the academic standards along with that.
Or if you don't meet the academic standards, you have to suffer the consequences.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what we're looking at is we're finding out more and more that the matrix that was put out for her to be able to meet up, you know, the instructions, she didn't follow the instructions. The word count was not the word count that was needed. She fell short on so many different of those metrics that it makes it really difficult. But then the University of Oklahoma did something that I think that all the university professors are really up in arms. And an alumni like myself, I'm very upset with the university about not following through with their own policy. It's like they kind of pivoted on their own, and and just kind of leapfrogged over, the appeals process. And they actually dismissed, or excuse me, not dismissed, but suspended one of the graduate.
I don't know if it was a suspension or administrative leave.
Okay.
Those are different.
Sure.
Those
sure.
are different. From what I understand, the teaching assistants' pay is still intact.
Okay.
And sometimes that is part of the investigative process.
Yeah.
It allows people to slow things down a little bit, let the investigators look through things, and allows the system to work.
Right.
But it sounds like the grade appeal process was not was followed, and it didn't result in the outcome that the student wanted.
Right.
And then it went to the governor's office by the student complaining to the governor.
Right.
And at that point, it does take a different shape for universities to have to navigate the political dynamics. And the regents are all appointed by the governor.
Certainly.
And funding is all wrapped up in it. So it puts this university in a very tenuous situation. But I do hope that whatever protocols are in place are followed.
Right.
And are not ignored, and
Right.
that ultimately academic integrity will not be compromised because of this political pressure that the university is facing.
And that's also a good thing, that we want to make sure that there was nothing inappropriate being done either by the university or by the student. We really would like for them to come together and basically go back to class and just continue on with the educational process, and not let this be a stain on that student.
Well, we already know that it wasn't going to impact her grade drastically. I think
True.
that's been publicly made available. So it sounds like, the disagreement about academic standards and whether or not she performed to them has not resulted in any kind of real persecution or significantly impacted her grade.
Right.
So unfortunately, though, politics doesn't always take that into consideration, and there are political things that have to be addressed by the regents and the president, and then also policy-wise, how they want to handle these kinds of situations where a syllabus or a way a teacher does their rubric gets this negative political attention. How does the university want to deal with that and protect academic integrity at the same time?
And I'm glad you brought that up. Those are very, very excellent points, and that's something that again, I know a lot of people on social media get their dander up and they get all upset, and to some degree, I did the same thing. Kind of took it beyond what it could possibly be, but at the same time, I think our concerns are, please continue doing what the university does best, and that's educating
Mm-hmm.
our students.
Yeah.
Don't allow the politics involved or the politics to actually change what is actually the outcome of a student's grade.
Mm-hmm.
That should never take place anywhere.
Right.
If that starts happening, then we're no better than some of those other universities that you pay for a grade and then really not earn it.
One of the things I was kind of joking around in my house about, I said, you can't write Jesus said so in purple crayon and get a PhD.
Exactly.
And, I'm a deep person of faith. I love my church. I love the Bible. I'm very active in Christianity, but I understand that the academic standards and research and the methodology that research takes has it's a whole world in and of itself. It's based on the scientific method, and learning how to reconcile those two things for people of faith is part of our responsibility. But I didn't ever feel like I needed to tear down all of academic research or the institutions of science and scientific research in order to be a person of faith. And I think that it's really important for us to remember that, there are ways to reconcile that, and we don't have to pick one or the other.
You said it so wonderfully, though. And I appreciate you saying that, because as a person of faith myself, going through college, I struggled with some of the same things. But again, I compartmentalized my Christian faith, and I compartmentalized what I had to do for the college. And it actually expanded my mind a lot when I was able to separate the two, and it actually allowed for a lot better grade outcomes to take place. Hey, look, I would have never got a master's degree if I would have just continued to try to keep that box of faith, completely in front of me all the time, and fight this scientific method, because the scientific method is a very long academic process, and it's been around for a long time, and we continue to get better at it all the time. So,
well, yeah, and there's one author, Francis Collins. He was the high-ranking at NCIS, the National Institute of Health. He led that institute for years. He was a resident in medical school when he really had to decide what his decision was about faith. And it was at that time that he decided that he wanted to be a person of faith. And he wrote a book called The Knowledge of God. And he says in his book that it was science. It was a scientific method that helped him understand the realm of faith and how it was a different composite about the human experience. So his book, there's a lot of other folks out there that reconcile faith and science. And, that's the time we live in. And you don't have to feel that the research methodologies that are used at OU are an attack on your religion. They simply are not.
Right.
And making things and manipulating things so where there's that appearance that there's this unreconciled tension is not the best use of our resources, even as people of faith or as academicians.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your comments on that. We do have a couple more topics that I wanted to talk to you about. I want to circle back to the Oklahoma Democratic Party.
Yeah.
John stepped down, as we talked earlier. Erin Brewer, I think, is a very capable person.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited about her having the opportunity as the interim chair now. She moved up as the interim chair until such time as the Central Committee can meet and make the determination who they want as a permanent chair and vice chair. But do you see a future that is different, as a different outcome? Or what I'm getting at, I was extremely excited coming into this year after October, November, and seeing some of the changes that were taking place within the Democratic Party. Do you see any reason why we shouldn't continue to be positive about what's going on within the state of Oklahoma?
I still remain very optimistic.
Very good.
I think that those that were elected in the summer are all fresh legs.
Sure.
That we have to kind of pull together the resources that we have. I think we have a real good broad base of leadership. And, I don't have any apprehension whatsoever that won't continue down that road. Now, the challenges that we just face in politics right now are still the same.
Sure.
And those are very serious, and they're very overwhelming. It does disappoint me that people can't separate the challenge from those that are trying to battle.
Right.
If you're in the front line and you're battling this overwhelming oppressive force, it sometimes feels like to blame those that are in the fight is not really that productive.
Right.
So we do see a lot of people that are willing to sacrifice a lot personally, a lot from their family. And I do think it's very important for all of us to know the signs of burnout and to make sure that we are in the long run, for the long haul, and to not overextend ourselves. And, one thing I think we do really well at Cleveland County, I think with Destiny and Jamie, what they've done here, that they've kind of spread out the responsibilities. They productively figured out different roles for each person. We've started to put together our, policies and procedures, and have a place for people to meet and organize. And I see that there's a lot less griping and a lot more working, and people not getting burnt out in Cleveland County. And I think that can happen too at the state level.
And we saw some really great progress here in Cleveland County over the course of the last few months, where we moved from a smaller facility to a facility like this, where we actually have a multimedia studio now. where we can actually have these types of things, like Coffee with Democrats
Yeah.
in here. Young Democrats can use the same facility. Women,
Absolutely.
Anybody who wants to do a podcast that is basically leaning towards the Democratic cause, they should have complete access to this anytime they
Absolutely.
want.
Yeah.
And I know on my part, I'll do everything I can to help anybody try to get stuff set up the way that I have here with Coffee with Democrats. But,
right. And also, I want to say one other thing that, Lauren is at the state level, and she helped in Cleveland County a lot. She helped on my campaign. She helped on Rosecrans' campaign. So she's been, she was on Joy's campaign. She's been around a long time, while she was still in, I think, middle school and high school. So she really understands the field work. She's really committed to registering more voters. She really understands the importance of really trained volunteers. So that gives me a lot of confidence as that the state party navigates this transition, that will navigate it well because of her influence and her leadership and the trust that she's earned.
Well, we need to transition just a little bit. We've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
We need to talk about your campaign. You were talking about campaigns there with Lauren. We need to talk about your campaign. You're running again for Senate.
Yes.
In District 16.
Yeah, Senate District 16, which is what we call Core Norman, the main part of Norman, around the university and Main Street and Campus Corner, all of that area, and spread out a little bit from there. I'm up for re-election. I file for office in April, and then the election will be in November. The primary is in June, and I think the runoff is in August. So yes, this is an election year for me. Starting in 2026. I've already announced my re-election campaign in September.
Right.
And since then, I've been meeting with people and been very busy, not with my campaign right now, but filing bills and deciding what bills I wanted to file, having interim studies. We had a lot this last fall, and then continuing to work on energy policy. One thing that's risen up recently that kind of intersects with the turnpike issue is that surface right owners, landowners, are really experiencing a lot of forces that have compromised their ability to use their land. There's been a lot of resistance towards landowners entering into renewable energy contracts with neighbors, and people complaining about that. And then we've also had a lot of surface right owners whose land has been impacted by abandoned and orphaned wells. So the water has been compromised in some ways. And then when new fracking happens, sometimes the water is coming up out of the ground, and really it's killed animals and really compromised the use and enjoyment of the surface rights owners' land. So I'm kind of looking at ways that we can have a little bit more accountability and give our landowners a little bit more support, and make it so where that they continue to use the land for agricultural production. And there's a big word called agrivoltaics. And and that word means the ability to dual use of land for solar projects or wind projects, and also agricultural production. And I've learned over this last fall how different countries, how Germany is doing that, and then how other parts of the United States and Colorado and others have reconciled that conflict. And so I'm looking forward to being able to work with my colleagues across the aisle to develop programs that'll really help our landowners be better equipped to navigate these new challenges that they face, and some of the old ones as far as abandoned and orphaned wells.
Well, I want to talk more about your campaign. You kicked it off in September. First of all, I got to tell you, instead of staying in town to go to your kickoff campaign, I decided to go to Colorado for vacation.
Oh, good.
So I wish I would have been able to be in both places.
Don't worry about it a bit. It was really a good turnout. I always feel that whoever's supposed to be there will be there. I never keep tabs. I obviously miss seeing people, but I know that we have to pace ourselves with this. And, like anybody that's involved in this gets 3 or 4 invitations a day for all kinds of things. And we just have to do the best we can. But yeah, my campaign is up and running. I have a website, maryboren.com, You can find out how ways to sign up for alerts, and then that's where my link to donate is. I need to raise some money pretty significantly before now in April, so that it lets everybody know that I'm well funded and well supported in my community, so that if anybody's wondering if, people like me really, without doing a poll, sometimes your bank account kind of tells everybody how much they like what you're doing.
Sure.
So that's why I'm raising funds. I'm going to have a pre-session fundraiser with Senator Nikki Nice on January 29th, right before session, because they call it the blackout period kicks in on that Tuesday when we go back into session.
Right.
So we can't accept certain kinds of funds during session. So it's very common to have a pre-session fundraiser right before the session starts.
So when is that again?
January 29th.
January. Okay. So, and you start back in session February 2nd.
Yes.
So,
is that Groundhog Day?
Oh my gosh, it's got to be.
Yeah.
So, how apropos. Though.
I know.
So,
the 8th year of Governor Stitt. So yeah.
Let's hope he doesn't get a 9th year. So. That won't happen. But anyway, I have on the screen for the followers that are coming on Coffee with Democrats to look at Mary's page is there, and prominently right in the middle, there's a click here to donate.
Yeah.
So Alicia Andrews taught me this when I first started working with her: time, treasure, and talent. Time, talent, and treasure, I think is the way she always talked about it. And I love the way that she said that, the 3 T's of campaigning. So not only do you need money, but you've got a host of volunteers who have helped you in the past.
Yes.
Some of those have moved on, and you could always use additional help.
Absolutely.
So,
and one thing we can really, throughout the whole party right now, between now and April, is really be dedicated to joining in some effort to register voters.
Sure.
And get good at that. I think that's one thing that we need. We also need to get people that are interested in helping at the election, on election day, at the election board. That if we're going to have more early voting, we're going to need more people to help out with that. So this is a perfect time for people. If you think, hey, I want to do my part on election day.
Right.
I don't, they still need a certain amount of Democrats, a certain amount of Republicans in those roles.
Right.
Of course, you're not going to be advocating greatly about, one particular candidate, but it is part of the auditing system that if everybody knows that both parties have their folks there, then it helps people stay in a very civil way and a nonpartisan way. If you know that both parties are available, and so if something goes wrong, they know that there's going to be held accountable. So that's something that people, and I hope that people will sacrifice some of their time to get trained to be serve on our election day at the election board.
And I've heard positive things coming back out of that. People who may be completely opposed to one another, not opposed to one another, but have opposing ideology.
Right.
But during election day, they get along very, very well and have coffee with each other before they go out, or have dinner afterwards. They carry on great conversations, and even after or before election day, they'll have conversations with one another. So I'm hearing some very positive things. So don't feel like volunteering at the election board is going to be controversial, or you'll be in a conflict.
And we even have paid positions,
Yes,
that they're
that's true.
compensated for their day. We just passed a bill to raise the amount of compensation. We also need, we need some people that are a little bit younger. It's really long days. And so some of our older folks that have been serving in that capacity, it gets really hard. It's a very hard day to stay in, for a 12-hour day. So we do need some people that have a little bit youth on them, and that they can be able to work at our election polling places.
Yes. So I know that there was one thing that we had talked about that I wanted to circle back on, and it has to do with not just campaign finance, because we talked about time, we talked about treasure. We need to make sure that we have not only the resources behind you, but also for the the Cleveland County Democrat office. We're using the facility today. You also use the facility from time to time, and I know that having a nice facility like this makes it very helpful for people to be able to come into to the Cleveland County
Absolutely.
Democrats,
Mm-hmm.
have contacts with us. I'll just relate a story, and I know that you've got stories to relate to, but I've had a number of Republicans that I have met that have walked in here asking for Democrat signs because they support a certain candidate.
Oh, good.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah. Having a well-staffed office that works in a professional way is very important for candidates. It's very comforting to me personally as a candidate to know that if I needed to do a training for 3 or 4 volunteers, that we could just meet here.
Right.
It's all set up for it. There's a good restroom, there's good parking, and I'm not having to, call around to try to find a place where I can meet up with people.
And we've got a great conference room now.
Yes, the conference room is wonderful. I've already met with some folks about organizing our precinct officers. So yeah, I think it's a great way to preserve our talents. Another thing that we also there's a lot of ways to help with campaigns, but one way that I think that we could do a lot better is get better at writing letters to the editor and opinion pieces. And then social media posts. I think we're getting really good at that. I think one thing that this last presidential administration since 2016 has taught us is that we just kind of have a good sense of what is trolling and unhelpful and what is actually helpful.
Right.
Kind of we know it when we see it. And I think more and more people are starting to understand how social media is, rage clicking or rage posting, that most people know that psychologically that's not good for us.
Sure.
And so people are really trying to stay more into that productive conflict or that productive conversation and less of just the straight up just venting and complaining.
And that got a confession to make. That was one of the things that I was involved in, was rage clicking it myself. But I started, I think, and it was based on either your recommendation or somebody else that I talked to. I am now doing every single day in the morning. I get up, look at the news, and I do a Coffee with Kevin segment every single day that goes out onto Facebook that talks about, 4 or 5 minutes of what I think is a topic just to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that, and I've got a train background. I've worked on trains for 43 years. So I always talk about being out the window and showing pictures, and you'll love the ones that I got on there right now because they're pictures of going through the Alps and the snow for the Christmas time that we got coming up right now to celebrate the holidays.
Good. Yeah. We do need to have things that make us feel hopeful.
Yes.
And our agency and our decision making still makes a positive difference.
Right.
Of course, we're going to feel upset and angry and frustrated at bad things that are happening. But we just always have to remember that's not the only thing that's happening. You can have beauty and darkness at the same time. You can have good and bad happening in the same day. And we have to deal with both. And if we recognize the good, and if we recognize those that are fighting the battles with us, and if we recognize those that are showing bravery and courage, that'll actually help us not feel like we have to so overly react to the negative stuff. And it always comes back to what can we control? And sometimes by hanging out with people that have positive attitudes and really are aware of where they can make a positive difference, then that is a better use of our energy than just venting about how bad things are.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to Coffee with Democrats. So next week on Tuesday, 7 p.m., Gina Nelson is going to be here in the studio with us.
That'll be fun.
We are so excited to be able to have a conversation. Gina's, again, a wonderful friend, somebody that I've always respected, and we have a mutual respect. And I'm looking forward to having this time to have this conversation with her.
And you usually have it so where before or after people can come in and say hi to her. Okay, good.
Certainly.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a good pairing. That way you get to speak to everybody outside of here, but then those people in this area can get to come by and say hi to her.
We'll firm that up this week to find out what time she's going to show up, and we'll let everybody know if there's time for us to have a meet and greet ahead of time. I know that she's always looking. Politicians candidates are always looking for opportunities for fundraising. So,
Yeah, right. That's
so,
right.
every handshake is an opportunity,
Yeah,
basically.
that's right.
So,
Yeah.
well, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
coming
I
on to
appreciate
Coffee
it.
with
I really
Democrat.
enjoyed it. Thank you,
Yes,
Kevin.
and we'll do this again. I don't want to be the burden and continue to call you all the time like I did today, but it was something that I thought with the university we needed to.
Yeah.
We
Well,
need
I
to
appreciate the
touch on
opportunity.
that. So,
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you so much. Hey, everybody! Until next Tuesday, let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Coffee with Democrats is broadcast from the multimedia studio inside the Cleveland County Democrats office with their gracious permission to use the space. Our thanks to the Cleveland County Democrats Central Committee and Chair Jamie Shelton for accommodating our Tuesday night show.